Yeah, I used to get high down there.
You did?
Yeah.
You were on the streets?
Yeah.
On Skid Row?
Yeah.
How many years ago was that?
7 years ago. I've been sober about 6. It'll be 6 in like a week. I'll have 6 years sober. And I spent a year, give or take, a little bit more in prison. And then before that, I was on the streets. So
you don't look like the kind of person that would spend time in prison.
Right.
Or on the streets on Skid Row.
Yeah. Well, I think, addiction doesn't really discriminate.
No, it does not.
I probably didn't look quite as put together either when I was down there.
I'm certain you didn't.
Yeah.
All right, Glynis. Glynis, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Massachusetts, Worcester County, small towns like Gardner and Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
Tell me about your family growing up.
Yeah, so I have 4 half siblings here from my dad's first marriage, but they're a lot older than me. So I have one younger sister. She's like 2.5 years younger. And then my mom and my dad. And my mom, she got sober before I was born. She was an alcoholic. And my dad is like working class, like postman, Vietnam veteran, Catholic, like just like old school Bostonian. But when I was like 11, my mom left for work one day and didn't come home, and she sent a letter in the mail like a week later. And that was like pretty traumatic, and I was already having some issues before that. But when she left, it was like kind of all bets were off. And I started kind of running away, drinking, using, hanging out with
How old were you when mom disappeared?
11.
11.
Yeah, it was September of 6th grade, so my first year in middle school, so the very beginning of the school year.
That's a tough time for mom to split.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, my parents were a little bit older, a lot older. I mean, my dad's like 77, and I'm 32 right now. So, and my mom is 71, I think, 72. So she was going through menopause when I was going through puberty. It was like already kind of World War III in our house. But when she left, she kind of like, I don't know, had a midlife crisis when she was going through menopause. At least from my perspective, that's how it looked like. Yeah, she started going by like a different name. She like got a breast reduction. She started working again after being a stay-at-home mom, and then just like decided I don't know, I always thought she just didn't want to be a mom, that like as things were getting harder because like her kids were growing up. But I don't think that's true in hindsight. I just don't think she had like the tools to like be a mom. Like she came from a broken household herself, But it definitely felt like I was abandoned.
Do you think the addiction that you had or have and your mom had is something that's just handed down genetically?
It's really hard to say. Like, yes and no. It's like chicken or the egg.
Right.
It's like her parents were alcoholics. My dad's parents suffered from alcoholism, but my dad doesn't. My mom does. Mm-hmm. I do. My sister doesn't. So, like, I don't really know.
But there was no terrible trauma in your childhood other than mom leaving?
I was
terrible enough.
Yeah, I was molested as a young kid.
Oh, you were?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's probably the last thing my parents handled well, like together. I was molested by a family friend who lived up the street, me and my sister both, and we ended up telling our parents, and they believed us, and we went to court. I think the most traumatic experience out of all of that was like testifying at like 8 years old. It was terrifying. When I think back of those times, because we did a lot of therapy afterwards at like 8, 9 years old, like the thing that like brings me back the most is like having to go to court and be like questioned.
And was he found guilty?
Yeah. He only went to prison for 6 months. Yeah, and then he was on house arrest for 6 months.
It's hardly worth traumatizing the kid.
Yeah, he had like a teaching license though, and he lost that. But I was just in Massachusetts yesterday, and I had been there for a week, and I saw him outside of his house. He's still there in my small town in Gardner. Yeah. And like he was accused a bunch of other times. The police were familiar, but nobody had gone through with like pressing charges and going to court.
Yeah, it's crazy that goes on. That happens so often.
Yeah. yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. After my recent loss, I was completely thrown off. I couldn't sleep, my mind was scattered, had a hard time working and focusing, so I started seeing a therapist. And just having a space to talk with someone who helps you see things from a different perspective helps you to feel grounded again. And slowly I started coming back to myself. And that's what therapy gives you, the ability to meet yourself with patience and compassion, especially when things don't go the way you expected. I think therapy is one of the best investments a person can make in themselves. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier. You just fill out a short questionnaire and get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch anytime at no extra cost. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, it's a platform you can trust. Click on the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/softwhiteunderbelly to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Thank you for watching. What kind of teenager were you?
I was a menace to society. By the time I was 13, I had gotten my first DUI. I didn't even have a permit to drive. I was like smoking crack. I was doing OxyContin. I had a boyfriend that was way too old for me. My dad was like doing his best as like a 60-something-year-old dad to like handle me, but like I was completely out of control. And he had to go back to work when my mom left to like financially provide. So he had retired and he had to go back to work and he was working overnights. So he wasn't really like there. And yeah, I went off the deep end for sure.
And you were so much younger than all your siblings.
Yeah, well, my older siblings from my dad's first marriage, they all lived here in Los Angeles. And yeah, they're like 15, 20 years older and they were here in LA. They were raised by their mom.
You graduated high school?
No.
You didn't?
No. So at 13, I got that DUI. I was going to court. I kept failing drug tests. And at that time, you know, what is that? Almost 20 years ago, at least in Massachusetts, like heroin or like crack addicted adolescents were like not as normal as they are today in 2025, which is sad, but it was like very shocking when I was like failing drug tests when I was on probation. And so the state was going to commit me, which like in California, it's called like Youth Authority, but out in Massachusetts, it's called Department of Youth Services. And I knew they were going to commit me until I was 18 and send me to juvenile detention and all of that stuff. And so I like ran away. I was on the run for a few months, got caught, picked up like a new charge because I had ran from the cops, and they ended up locking me up essentially until I was 18. Yeah.
What were your drugs? What were you playing around with at that time?
I mean, I was playing around with everything, but like I was a heroin addict at that time. There was really no fentanyl, not like street fentanyl like they have then. So it was primarily heroin. I had like smoked a lot of crack at that time, or freebase too, but it was primarily heroin. So I think I was committed to the state when I was like 15 and a half, about to turn 16. And I think I was in the 10th grade and they put me in juvenile detention, and I was going to school there, but most of the girls there were like, they had like the reading or like the educational background of like a 7th or 8th grader max, you know? And so they had us all doing the same schoolwork. So I wasn't able to get my diploma. And I didn't get out until like a month or two before my 18th birthday.
And so when you were done with school and all that, did you end up homeless, or did you go get a job, an apartment, and all that?
Yeah, so I got out of juvie and they put me like into like a recovery home for girls. And so I like started to be kind of exposed to like sobriety and recovery and all that stuff. And when I finally went home, right before I was going to age out of the Department of Youth Services, I went to like this like nonprofit thing called Gateway to College, which was like a way where you can get high school credits and like community college credits towards like an associate's degree. And so I was going to the community college in my hometown in Gardner, Mount Wachusett. And I did well there for like maybe 6 months, and then I turned 18 and I started drinking again. And when I started drinking, within a couple months, I was like shooting dope again. So I kind of just dropped out of that. But I did get my GED.
Looking back at those times, how do you see your mindset must be very, very different now than it was then?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think for a long time, I thought that there was like a dark cloud over me or something like that I had like bad luck, that my circumstances were unfortunate. You know, I didn't have a mom, you know, I was on the streets, I was on my own, I was all these things, and like, woe is me. But in hindsight, I think like those experiences really gave me a lot of insight into like today help other people. But at the time, it just felt like very doom and gloom. And I think there was like a lack of accountability and like recognition that like I was the problem, right? Because my sister, she had the same experiences as me, but she wasn't like shooting dope and smoking crack and like robbing our grandma, you know what I mean? She's like, so like, what is really my excuse? But then it didn't feel that way, for sure.
What kind of things were you getting into at that time? How were you making money?
Yeah. So when I was 18, I got like my first job, and it was at Victoria's Secret, and it lasted 3 days. And I think I was like falling asleep during the training videos in the back, like nodding off. And then I just, I went to go work at the strip club. And so I became a stripper, and I was living in like Rhode Island for a little while. And in Providence, Rhode Island, the strip clubs, at least then, were like, they weren't normal strip clubs. They were like brothels. It was crazy. And I was making a lot of money. So like, I would get high all day long. All day long, I say all day. I was waking up at like 4 or 5 p.m. I would like wake up, get high, go to the strip club. If I didn't have any money or I couldn't make rent, I would make it that night. And then I would just like get more drugs and then go home at like 4 a.m. and then sleep all day again and like kind of just do that and repeat. Like I remember when I was younger, I was like partying and getting loaded, and I was doing it with other people, and like it seemed kind of fun. But by the time I was like, I had turned 18, I was doing all this, it was like very isolating. I wasn't like hanging out with other people. I didn't really have any friends. Like I wasn't spending any time with my family. So it was just like very isolating and kind of lonely.
Yeah, drug use is ultimately a pretty lonely existence, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Even the people that you might be getting high with, none of them are really your friend. Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that there's like certain people throughout those years where I look back and I'm like, okay, they were doing the best they could too. Like I was a piece of shit myself. There were like really bad people and really bad things happened throughout those years. But there were certain people that like, there was like times where my life was saved by some of those people too, you know?
What was your lowest point?
That's hard to say. Well, after I left Rhode Island, Providence, and I moved to Texas, and I like got it together for a short time, and I had a boyfriend, and he was like a nice guy. He was like a normal guy, and things were okay. I was like just drinking, but I was drinking way too much. And then eventually I started getting high again. And I remember I came to visit from Texas, and I relapsed, overdosed, and wound up in like MCI Framingham, which is like a state prison in Massachusetts, like within 8 hours of being back in Massachusetts. Oh, wow. And after that, I like stayed in Mass for a little while, and then eventually went back to Texas. And the boyfriend at the time, who was like, I definitely didn't deserve his like kindness. It got to a point where I was like, I had started doing meth. And they didn't have meth in Massachusetts growing up, but they had meth in Texas. So I was like doing meth, and I was still shooting dope. And he was like...
It's funny how crack, meth, or opiate users will call their drug dope.
Yeah, they're all called dope.
They're all dope.
I know. I mean, back in the day, I feel like my dad calls dope weed. So
yeah, right. Yeah, even weed is dope.
Yeah.
But the other drugs are not.
Yeah, shooting heroin. So eventually he was like, I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, because I just couldn't keep it together. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get out of bed. I wasn't reliable. I couldn't be honest. I mean, I would like go out and disappear for like 4 or 5 days. I would like take the car. I say our car, but it was his car, stolen by like gang members in West Dallas. I mean, it was just so much chaos that he was like, I love you and I care about you, but I can't really do this. And so there was a little while, a few months where he like didn't put me out on the streets. He was like hoping that I could like get my shit together enough to like move out. And so it was kind of like very sad and depressing, you know what I mean? Because he was kind of seeing like the state I was in and like he wanted to help me but couldn't. And then I wanted to get out because I like cared about him but like knew that he couldn't and wouldn't be with me. And so I ended up meeting a pimp out in Texas and Money Mike. And I ended up becoming like a full prostitute, you know? So that was probably a low that I didn't expect to hit.
And this is all driven by drug use.
Yeah.
Drug addiction.
Yeah, I think at the time I convinced myself, like sometimes when you're in really like painful, traumatic, like demoralizing circumstances, I think like, I feel like the reason that I've like, that I can like talk about it now and like, I don't feel shameful of it is like, I had to like convince myself of like the big lie, right? That I was like, like this high-end, like independent woman that was like, you know, like open sexually and like using my body, you know, how I wanted to. But the truth is like I had a pimp and I was giving all my money to this pimp. And yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
What is it that allows you to speak so freely and openly about it now?
Well, you know, when I was like...
And publicly.
Sorry, what?
And publicly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't spoken about it this publicly, but I think like when I was newly sober, it was something that I didn't really talk about so much. If I did, it was like one-on-one, like with like women in my sober community. And there was like one time that I was like speaking to like a group of people and telling them, you know, some of these things. And like, I remember like 2 or 3 women who also were like in their early sober journey, like came up to me and was like, oh my God, you know, I've had experiences like that too. Like, that's so inspiring that you were willing to talk about it. And then like other women in my life would send like women who were like in sex work and or like who had been trafficked or whatever, they would send them my number. And it like, I realized that like those experiences have made me like more useful and effective to be helpful to other people, and that like there doesn't have to be so much shame about the things that we've done, especially if you can kind of like transcend and make it like your pain could be someone else's medicine. You know what I mean? It can be inspiring. And so it is what it is. It's the truth.
It seems like a lot of the shame a sex worker will get comes from the men that are typically their clients.
That wasn't my experience.
I mean, the men seem to be attracted to these women, but then they also like to make them feel guilty.
Yeah.
For what they do.
Well, some of them, but for the most part, like when I first started doing, I say sex work, but it was prostitution. In the beginning, it was not fancy, like high-end stuff. It was like Motel 8s, like Craigslist. It was crazy. And it was not a glamorous experience at all. And then eventually, like, things had gotten kind of like crazy with the pimp, and like there was other girls, and like a bunch of us were like living in like this loft in Dallas, and there was like other prostitutes, and it was like a whole thing. And like it's a whole lifestyle, this like pimp host stuff. Like there's like a specific like language and culture and like ideology and almost like brainwashing that goes all into it, right? And you kind of have to just subscribe and like kind of be in it. Like prison's very similar. Like when you go to prison, like you have to like subscribe and buy into these ideas that in like the real world are like crazy.
When you're in the middle of all that, do you ever have moments where you realize this is just nuts? Or you kind of brainwashed, like you said?
Yeah, at the time I was kind of like brainwashed to believe this thing, and like in the very beginning when I left that relationship and I started doing it, like the goal was just to like be on my own and not have to be in that house with that person who I cared about in like this like really sad situation. At first it's like, okay, we get a car, now we have a place, and like, you know, I always have money, and it's fine,
you're
right?
You're elevating.
Yeah, and then like as I go on and like there's this like whole underworld of like prostitution and sex work, like where they have like essentially like Yelp for sex work, right? It's not called that, but I'm not going to go too far into it. Where like once you've been like doing it long enough, you'll eventually get like a profile on one of these like review sites. And on these review sites, once a John or a Trick who has been a part of that community for a long time, like reviews you and verifies that you are who you say you are and like everything's consistent. Once you have one of those, you become what they call a verified provider, right? And that's when you can start like posting on really high-end sites that require you to be like verified and approved. And then you start making a lot more money. And it's a little bit like less like gnarly, you know, like than being in a Motel 8, like on Craigslist. And at that point, I started to make like really, really good money. And I had like very consistent like clients, and it was just like a whole kind of other world. Like a lot of them were just paying me to like hang out with them. And
I hear that all the time.
Yeah. The best clients really just like, they like become your friends. Like you become their therapist, and like.
And you're not having sex with them.
Not always. Or if so, like some of them not at all. And then there's like, yeah, it just kind of turns
Is it just somebody to do drugs with?
Most of them did not do drugs.
They didn't
That's
do
usually
drugs.
Not an upside. Yeah, no, most of them didn't do drugs. Once in a while, there was ones that would do drugs. Like there's usually, if there were clients that did drugs, they were fucking crazy. They were totally insane. The ones that didn't do drugs, like the normal, like wealthy, just like producers.
These are married?
Some of them not. Mm-hmm. Some of them are married. There was like an ex-state senator. There was like a lot of attorneys. Financial guy. There was like all kinds of different people, interesting people, producers, like movie producers, all kinds of stuff. And so that at that point, I started making so much money, and I was making so much more money than any of the other girls. And so I was essentially paying for like everybody to live, that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I like escaped in the middle of the night, because you can't really just leave a pimp and be like, hey, I'm done, you know. He had like my ID, he had my social security card, my birth certificate. He like my phone was on like his, like he had everything. And so I had like opened a secret bank account and been like stashing away money. Mm. Yeah, and then I like he left one night with a couple of girls, like fresh turnouts is what they call them, like new girls. Yeah. And I had like two of my like clients come with U-Hauls, and like we like moved everything out and left.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I kept doing it for a couple of years. I was doing it for myself.
Yeah, were you saving money?
Saving money is like, I was making a lot of money. Saving, no. I was a heroin addict, and now also a meth addict. I was buying like an ounce of meth a week. And then eventually it turned into fentanyl, because my veins were so shot out I couldn't even shoot heroin. And if I smoked it, I would still be sick. And so eventually I was buying like an ounce of fentanyl a week almost. It was crazy.
Not many people break free from fentanyl.
Yeah, well, I had been using for so many years at that point, and I already said I had such a high tolerance with the heroin. I was doing like 4 or 5 grams a day of heroin. By the time I did fentanyl, like I was only smoking it because my veins were kind of shot out. So I shot it a few times, but I never overdosed on fentanyl, oddly enough. But again, I had spent 5-6 years shooting heroin. So.
And you've been clean for how long?
It'll be 6 years in 10 days.
How are your veins? How's your health?
My health is good. I don't have HIV or Hep C. My veins are not good. I have one lady at a Quest in Century City. She's a Russian lady. She's not super friendly, but she's the only person that can like get blood from me. So it's a whole process. I have to like chug water for like 48 hours. I'll work out before and like hope and pray that they can draw blood from me. It's definitely not great, but I'm super healthy now.
Yeah, you look great. Tell me about your regrets. Do you have regret from all of this?
Yeah. I definitely not. I regret like not completing like college, not going to school, getting a degree. My like grandmother had like left money for me to do that, and she passed away, and there was like only a certain period of time in which I had to use it, and I like never took advantage of it, so it all went to like a nonprofit. I definitely regret that. But all of the stuff that I did, I think like I don't regret it anymore. I feel like I'm not glad the things happened, you know, like, but I feel like it made me who I am today. And like who I am today is like a successful, nurturing, loving, open, honest person who's like of service to other people. And like, I just don't know if I would have that same like perspective on the world if I didn't have all the bad, you know?
Mm-hmm. Plus you're giving hope to a lot of people who are probably in the thick of it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, someone who gets free from fentanyl.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely
looks as healthy
possible.
as you do.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I see it all the time, but I think people see a lot of like the worst of it, and there's some people that don't come back.
Is life as good, or how does life compare when you're clean? You've been clean 6 years to when you were in the middle of all the addiction.
Incomparable. I mean, when I talk about all this stuff, you know, in my past, it almost feels like a dream, like not real life.
But a bad dream.
Yeah, definitely a bad dream, but like it doesn't even feel like I'm talking about me. It's almost like I'm talking about like another person that existed like then. I don't know, it's very crazy. Yeah, life is like drastically different. So I ended up leaving Texas, actually. I left Texas and I came to Los Angeles. And after about like 2 years of being out here, I wound up in federal prison. And yeah, even when I got out and I was like newly sober, like everything was still like chaotic. Even though I was sober, I thought like, oh, now that I'm not on drugs, like everything's gonna be fine. But that just like was not the case. In fact, it was like even more difficult. Like doing anything was like very challenging. Like overwhelming, debilitating anxiety. Like I didn't know how to like handle like normal life things, like pay a bill or like get up at a normal time or like.
Is that because you never did it?
Yeah, and also years and years of like drug use. It's like you don't really sleep much when you're on meth, you know?
You have no responsibilities.
Right, like eating healthy. Like I'd never really worked out or like gone, like I'd never like done normal people stuff. So it was like I was like learning how to like be a human being.
How long did it take for you to adjust to normal life?
Adjust to normal life. I kind of just like threw myself into like sobriety and like recovery, like as strongly as when I was like using drugs. Like I'm very much like an addict, like an addictive person. Like I don't have any like gray area or like chill button at all. There's like, it's like all or nothing. Yeah. So like I'm very extreme in that way. So I kind of like just like threw myself into that. And I think it was about a year. It felt like I was just like in a manic episode for a year, to be honest. And then like after about a year sober, like I started to kind of like lean into like sobriety. But like I didn't think I was going to be able to get a normal job because now I'm a felon and a federal felon at that. And I was like, I just didn't know really what I was going to do.
And you'd probably describe yourself as self-destructive then?
Yeah, for sure.
Are you self-destructive now?
Yeah, but not in the same way. Like I run marathons now. You know what I mean? I like painful, hard things.
It looks to me like the drugs are like putting fertilizer on your self-destructive tendencies.
Oh, for sure. Like impulsivity and like crazy. Yeah. I mean, when I went to prison, I was smuggling Mexicans into the country in my trunk. So towards the end, it was like, I just wanted to feel something. So like the crazier it wasn't even like just drugs anymore. It was like more than drugs, because I was making such good money as this like a sex worker. I could support my like drug habit. So I was like, what else can I do to like, I don't know, feel something? It was like I was just like numb.
And were you thinking about your future at the time, or you were just thinking about today?
No, I was like kind of on a suicide mission. Like I didn't want to kill myself, but I had like kind of like resigned myself to the idea that I was going to die. And like, I didn't know if I was going to die of an overdose or like, you know, like something crazy happening in the streets or something like that. Because things like, especially in Los Angeles, like things were getting really crazy. The people I was around and the things I was doing, like it was like really scary at certain points, but I kind of just got to a place where like I just didn't care.
Was there a particular event that kind of made you get serious about getting clean?
Yeah, going to federal prison for smuggling. I mean, but even then I wasn't serious. Like, no, I had given up trying to get sober. I had gone to 43 detoxes over the years, like in and out. I would go in, I would spend like a week, and then I would get out, and then I would get loaded again. And so like I stopped doing that. And I'd been to jail and prison and juvie before, so I can't just say that it was prison that like got me sober, because if that was the case, I would have gotten sober the other times. Like, I don't really know what changed. Like, I think going to prison for like more than, you know, for a decent chunk of time was like important, because it like gave me enough separation to like have a little bit of like mental clarity. And in the beginning, I just didn't want to go back to prison. And that was a big motivating factor.
Sure.
And I had like a federal parole officer, and they were like, if you fail one single drug test, you will do the rest of your time, which was 36 months.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. And I also just like didn't want to die anymore. Like I had a little bit of a will to live, and that was like kind of like the mustard seed, but it like blossomed to be so much more than that.
You're getting your self-worth back.
Yeah, little by little. That definitely wasn't my intention in the beginning, but it was just like stay out of prison and like maybe not die. And then it kind of like grew into a lot more, you know?
What do you think a lot of people don't understand about drug addiction? Now that you're on this side of it.
Yeah, there's so many things that people don't understand. I think people think that there's a choice in the matter, that people are choosing to continue to use or choosing to like be scumbags or pieces of shit, but I just don't think that's true. I think there's like a reaction that's different from me to, let's say, my dad or my sister. You know, like when they have a glass of wine, they don't have 30 and end up shooting dope on Skid Row. I have a glass of wine and like some flip is switched in my body that like makes me crave it in a way that's hard to put into like words, you know?
I've heard it said an addict they have an on switch, but they don't have an off switch.
Yeah, that's 100% how it is. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next, and I'll chase that like craving and that like that drive, like a magnet being pulled until death. I'll do anything that I need to do to continue to do that thing. And it's hard to say when someone's done. Like, I think when you talk about like a crazy story like me, smuggling immigrants and working as a sex worker, I think people have this idea that you have to hit some like really chaotic bottom where you've done all these crazy things and had 10 overdoses or whatever the story is, you know what I mean? I don't think that's always true. That was my truth. But I also think that like the bottom, like it's bottomless. I think you could always keep digging. I think if you don't think it can get worse, it can get worse. You know what I mean? Like, I thought maybe my bottom would be like Money Mike, but then I like smuggled Mexicans into the country in my trunk for the cartel and ended up going like, it got worse. It can always get worse. Like Skid Row in downtown LA and MacArthur Park, I thought it couldn't get worse than that. But like, it can always get worse. And so I think like a bottom is like more of like an internal experience where you like almost surrender and like it feels very dark and hopeless, but oftentimes that like feeling of darkness and like hopelessness is like the entry point to like being willing to like make some like novel changes that you may not have been willing to make previously.
What do you think the core behind getting clean and staying clean is? Is it just strengthening your self-worth?
I think, of course, having like self-worth is important. You have to like be willing to believe that you're worthy of like having a life worth living, for sure. But that takes time.
Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed so many people who just seem to have zero self-worth.
Yeah, self-hatred is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a mix. I think there's no monopoly on it. I think everybody has different journeys to like where they get to this place. But I think for most of the people I know that are not just sober, but also happy, because I know a lot of people who aren't using drugs and alcohol that used to that are fucking miserable. Mm-hmm. I think the ones that are genuinely happy and like purposeful have, there's always some component of like being helpful to other people, like being of service. And that also allows you to like remember where you came from.
That seems to be a really helpful.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It helps you remember where you came from. It also allows you to get out of yourself, right? Because like alcoholism addiction is such a like selfish, self-centered, like self-hating disease. Like, and if we were able to just like think better of ourselves, then we would do it. You know what I mean? So like thinking and being of service to other people, and also like for me, like, I mean, really, it was like everything that needs to change, like connection to something greater, like spirituality. Like most people that I know that are sober and happy also have some kind of like spiritual practice, whether it's like Buddhism or whether it's, you know, like meditation or whether it's religious or whether it's, you know, it doesn't even have to be religious, but there's like some kind of like, you know, like spiritual practice of some kind. And
Glynis, let me ask you one last question. What would you say is the most important thing you've learned in all of this?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the most important things I've learned is like that there's always like a light at the end of the tunnel, that nothing happens.
Is there hope for somebody who appears hopeless?
100%.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I mean, like the life that a person can build, who's like been in the positions that I've been in, is like, it's really shocking. Like I'm a business owner now, you know, like I have a podcast, I run marathons, I am married, I have a husband, you know what I mean? And like, I have like a community, I have friends, I have people that love me, people that rely on me. I've done like all these things that I didn't think were possible. And if anything, I feel like my experiences are the things that have made a lot of that possible, you know?
Awesome. I'm happy for you. Thank you for sharing your story, Glynis, and just good luck from here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.